Imagine standing outside a grand penthouse door after a long day, only to overhear the woman you trusted most wishing your mother was gone. The weight of betrayal hits harder than any business deal, and silence becomes the only shield. But from that moment, a vow is born, a vow that will change his life forever, leading him from heartbreak to an unexpected love that heals both him and his family. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video, and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. The city moved like a slow river of light under the night sky. From the 31st floor, cars looked small and calm. Ben Rose stepped out of the elevator with careful steps. His shoulders were tired from a long day. He held his briefcase like it weighed a little more than leather and paper. Lavender drifted from under the door. That scent meant home. That scent meant his mother, Miriam, liked the air, soft and kind. He opened the door and paused. Quiet lived in the room, but it was not empty. It had a feeling like a breath held too long. The music he often set on a timer had ended. A lamp drew a soft circle on the rug. He set the briefcase down and listened. There were voices. One voice was gentle and thin, like a ribbon. The other voice was sharp, like a line drawn with a hard pencil. Ben walked toward the sitting room and slowed at the doorway. Miriam sat with a blanket over her knees. She looked small but steady. Her hands were folded on her lap, patient hands that had helped him grow up and stand tall. Across from her sat Vivian Cross. She was dressed as if a party might happen at any second. Her dress caught the light. Her phone glowed in her palm. "He is at the hospital too much," Vivian said, not loud but pointed. "He puts everything on hold. Where does that leave us?" Miriam did not answer. She had learned long ago that not every sentence needs a reply. Ben stood a step back, unseen, and he felt a quiet ache. This was his home, and yet something had shifted. A line had been crossed, not with noise, but with a tone that did not carry care. He stepped in and let the room know he was there. He greeted his mother first. He thanked Vivian for visiting. He chose courtesy because courtesy protects peace. After a few careful words, Vivian stood. She said she would call later. The door closed. The skin was cool, and the pulse was steady. "I'm here," he said. "I am not leaving." Miriam smiled a little. "I know," she said. That knowing helps. Her smile was small, but it was real. It reminded Ben why he worked so hard. It reminded him that respect is not a speech. It is 1,000 small choices made in quiet moments. Later, when the city lights drew lines across the glass, Ben stood by the window. The view was the same, yet he saw it differently. Success lights up the skyline, he thought, but character lights up a room. He thought about the long meetings, the deals, the steps that built his company. He also thought about tea at a small kitchen table years ago, when Miriam told him that kindness keeps a house standing when storms arrive. He did not replay every word from the evening. He did not need to. He held on to what mattered. His mother deserved respect. His home deserved warmth. His life needed truth. He let the decision form without drama. He would protect his mother's rest. He would honor her time and her voice. He would not let impatience write the rules inside these walls. Morning came with pale light at the window and a soft beep from the kettle. Miriam's breathing felt a little heavier. Ben moved with calm hands. He helped her sit up. He made the tea. He called the driver and the clinic. His schedule could wait. This was the work of the day. This was the right work. He kept his voice steady, and Miriam matched his calm with a nod. The hospital corridors would be bright and busy. They would smell like antiseptic and fresh sheets. He had walked them before. He would walk them again. But he felt something different rising inside. Not dread, not fear. It was a promise. He would build from care. He would listen more. He would choose people who choose kindness. This is where the story hooks in and holds. A son, a mother, a home under pressure, a partner who measures love by convenience. And a decision that begins without a shout. For viewers and listeners who love inspiring real-life stories, this is the moment to lean closer. It is the crack in the glass where light finds a way through. It is the start of a humane journey where respect, loyalty, and gentle courage lead every step. As Ben guided Miriam to the elevator, the lavender on her sweater trailed the air like a soft trail back to the door. He pressed the button and waited. The numbers glowed. Floors moved by. He did not know who they would meet in the next hallway. He did not know how a calm voice could rebuild a day. But the path was clear. Protect what matters. Honor the person who taught him to be steady. Choose kindness and let the rest follow. And so the city kept moving under the sky, steady and sure. Ben held his mother's hand. The elevator doors opened. The next chapter waited, not loud, not flashy, but bright with hope. This is an inspiring, human-friendly story about care, compassion, and true connection. This is where real love begins to grow. This is where a house learns how to be a home again. The hospital was awake long before the city outside. Bright lights stretched across long hallways, and every step echoed like a reminder that people here lived between fear and hope. Ben Rowe guided his mother, Miriam, through the entrance. She leaned on his arm, her frame fragile, her breath shallow. The smell of antiseptic filled the air. It was the same scent that always told Ben life had paused and nothing else mattered but care. They reached a room with white walls and a wide window. Ben helped Miriam into the bed, adjusted her blanket, and stayed near while a nurse checked the machines. He kept his eyes on every detail, watching, guarding, unwilling to miss a single moment. Then another nurse entered, moving quietly but with purpose. Her voice carried calm, not rush. "Good morning, Mrs. Rowe," she said with a gentle tone. "I'm Naomi Lee. I'll be looking after you today. We'll take things one step at a time." Miriam looked up, surprised by the warmth. "Thank you," she whispered. Naomi smiled. "We'll make sure this space feels easier. If the light feels too strong, I'll close the blinds. If the pillow feels heavy, I'll adjust it. Nothing here has to be rushed." Ben watched the small changes. Naomi lowered the blinds just enough so the sunlight softened instead of stung. She arranged the pillows until Miriam nodded. She placed a lavender sachet near the bed, noticing the small bag Miriam carried. These gestures were not medical orders, but they carried healing in another way. For the first time that morning, Miriam's shoulders loosened. She looked at Naomi and managed a faint smile. "You make it feel less like a hospital," she said. "That's the goal." Naomi answered. "Comfort makes recovery possible." Ben stayed silent, but inside he felt the difference too. Hospitals often drained the spirit, yet here, in a single exchange, the room felt less cold. It felt human again. Throughout the day, Naomi returned often. She checked the IV, noted the monitor, and asked questions that showed she listened. "Are you more tired before meals or after?" she asked. "Does the chair feel too low?" She listened, as if every answer mattered. When Miriam spoke, Naomi leaned in slightly, showing patience without pressing. Ben stepped into the hallway to finish paperwork. Through the glass panel in the door, he saw his mother laugh. It was not loud, but it was true. Naomi had told a small story about another patient who once named the machines to make them less frightening. "This one here," Naomi said, pointing to the monitor, "was called Steady Eddie." Miriam chuckled at the thought, and Ben felt a knot loosen in his chest. Later that evening, Naomi walked with Ben toward the elevator. "Your mother is strong," she said. "She knows her body, and she trusts you. That trust is her strength." Ben nodded. She hides her pain to keep me from worrying. Sometimes I think she's stronger than I am. She doesn't hide it from herself, Naomi replied softly. She just chooses grace. Her words stayed with him through the night. The next 2 days followed a rhythm. Naomi appeared, even when not assigned, just to adjust a blanket or check on Miriam. Once she brought a small card, folded neatly, with a short phrase written in steady handwriting. Roots grow deeper in storms. Miriam held the card in her hands like a treasure. Vivian visited one afternoon, heels clicking on the tile floor, phone in hand. She sighed at the smell of antiseptic. She scrolled while doctors spoke. She leaned close to Ben and whispered, "We cannot live in hospitals forever. This is too much." Ben looked through the glass again. Naomi was at another patient's side, helping a family understand how to hold a hand without disturbing a bandage. Patience marked every step she took. He turned back to Vivian. "For my mother, this is everything," he said evenly. "So it is everything for me." When Miriam stabilized, the attending physician prepared discharge papers. Ben asked quietly, "Could we arrange for Nurse Naomi to visit at home? My mother responds well to her." The doctor nodded. "She is excellent. If she agrees, we will make the schedule." That evening, Naomi came to the house for the first time. She explained the medication plan in simple steps so Miriam could feel in control. She showed Ben how to set reminders without making it sound like orders. She moved a chair near the east window so Miriam could feel morning light. When she left, Miriam leaned back with a smile. "She carries quiet like a lantern," she said. Ben stood by the window, thinking about those words. He realized lanterns don't force the dark away. They guide you through it. He understood then that kindness was not a luxury. It was the very ground under their feet. It was the difference between fear and hope, between a house and a home. This chapter of their story was not about medicine alone. It was about patience, respect, and the calm strength of compassion. These corridors of kindness were where their lives began to shift. It was not dramatic, it was steady, and sometimes steady is what saves us. As the night settled, Ben made a vow as clear as the lights outside. He would choose people who carried light. He would protect his mother's peace, and he would never mistake noise for care again. This was not just healing, it was the first step towards something brighter, something lasting, and something true. The new rhythm began quietly, like sunlight slipping through curtains after a long night. Ben Rowe's home had carried the weight of silence for many months. Every sound had been measured, every breath careful. But with Nurse Naomi Lee arriving 3 times a week, the air slowly shifted. She brought her calm bag of supplies, her steady smile, and her gentle questions that always seemed to carry more care than instructions. On her first morning visit, she opened the windows just enough to let fresh air inside. She placed a sprig of mint in a pitcher of water and set it on the kitchen counter. Miriam Rowe, resting in her chair, watched with faint amusement. "You make the house smell alive again," she said softly. Naomi smiled. A house heals when the people inside it feel cared for. The visits continued. Sometimes, Naomi brought small notes written on folded cards with short sayings. One read, "Hearts mend in places where kindness is allowed to stay." Miriam held it on her lap as if it were medicine. Another time, Naomi carried a simple paper crane she folded herself. She set it on the nightstand. "For good luck," she explained. These little things built warmth in corners that had once felt cold. Ben noticed the difference, not only in his mother, but in the house itself. Laughter began to return, soft but real. He found himself staying in the room while Naomi worked, not to oversee, but because he learned something every time. She showed him how to adjust pillows so Miriam could breathe better. She explained how to read the small changes in expression. that revealed discomfort before words could. Vivian, however, grew restless. One evening, she entered the foyer with her coat still on, glancing around with a frown. "This place smells like medicine," she said. "When do we get our life back?" Ben answered evenly, "This is our life. This is what matters." She sighed, unimpressed, and left without saying more. A few days later, they met for coffee in a quiet shop. Ben spoke with calm honesty. "I need a relationship that honors my mother. I need patience for the hard parts, not just interest in the easy ones." Vivian looked away, tapping her nails on the table, then finally nodded. Their time together ended without anger, but with a final truth. Their paths no longer fit. When Ben returned home, Miriam sensed the change. She reached for his hand and whispered, "The right quiet can be the bravest sound." He held her hand tighter, knowing she was right. Spring arrived outside, and with it came an invitation to a charity gala. Ben had agreed months ago. He considered not going, but Miriam urged him. "Take Naomi," she suggested with a spark in her eyes. "She belongs where kindness is seen." Ben hesitated but asked Naomi, who at first was unsure. "I don't fit in those places," she said with a small laugh. "I'm comfortable in practical shoes." Ben smiled. "Then wear practical shoes. I just want your company." The night of the gala, the hall glittered with lights and polished conversations. Ben stood near a tall window with Naomi, listening to her describe the community clinic where she volunteered. He realized he had not felt this present in years. While others spoke of business and influence, Naomi spoke of children who drew pictures for nurses, of families grateful for small acts of help. Her stories had no decoration, only truth. Then Vivian appeared. She approached with careful grace, her eyes sharp. "Ben," she said, her voice carrying for others to hear, "I see you brought help." Naomi smiled politely. "I'm glad to be here. Miriam is resting well this week." Vivian tilted her head. "You must be very good at your job." Ben met her gaze steadily. "She is more than good at her work. She is good, and I am grateful." The words were simple, but they carried weight. Vivian blinked, then moved on, leaving behind a silence that felt lighter than any argument. Weeks turned into months. Miriam regained her color. She walked short distances on the terrace with Naomi at her side. They talked about flowers, herbs, and the stubborn basil plant that refused to wilt. Ben sometimes watched from the doorway, realizing the house no longer carried only struggle. It carried laughter again, small but true. One afternoon, as Naomi prepared tea, Ben leaned against the counter. "When you come here, the day feels lighter," he admitted. "I didn't know how much we needed that." Naomi looked up, surprised, then answered softly. "Care works both ways. When people let you in, it helps you heal too." Her words stayed with him like a lantern in the dark. He realized then that this was more than nursing. This was restoration. The house itself seemed to relearn sunlight, and with it, Ben began to feel a life that was not only duty, but also hope. This part of their story was about rediscovering what makes a house a home. It was about patience, kindness, and the courage to let go of what does not honor the heart. It was about allowing compassion to guide the next steps. Ben Rowe had chosen truth over appearance, respect over convenience, and now his home carried the glow of sunlight once again. The rooftop garden waited under a quiet sky. String lights curved around the railing, and soft lanterns glowed among the planters. The air was cool but calm, carrying the faint scent of roses planted months before. Ben Rowe had spent the day arranging every detail, not with grand gestures, but with steady hands. This was not a night for show. This was a night for truth. Miriam Rowe sat in a cushioned chair near the table, a blanket over her knees. Her health had improved in recent weeks, and her eyes shone brighter now than they had in months. She insisted on being present. I wouldn't miss this, she told her son with a smile. Her presence was not only approval, but blessing. Naomi Lee arrived with her usual calmness, but when she stepped onto the rooftop and saw the scene, she paused. The soft lights reflected in her eyes. "What is all this?" she asked, her voice full of surprise. Ben walked toward her. "It's a thank you," he said, "and something more." The three of them sat together for a simple meal. There was soup, fresh bread, and fruit that Miriam had chosen earlier. Conversation moved easily. Miriam told a story about Ben's childhood, about a birthday cake that collapsed in the oven and turned into what she had called spoon cake. Laughter filled the space, wrapping the evening in warmth. As the meal ended, Ben grew quiet. He looked first at his mother, then at Naomi. "Would you stay?" he asked Miriam. She nodded, her eyes soft with understanding. Ben turned fully to Naomi. "When we first met, I thought you were only here to help my mother breathe easier. I didn't know you would teach me how to breathe too. You've brought patience into this home. You've offered kindness without asking for anything in return. I admire you, and I care for you deeply." Naomi's eyes glistened. She did not look away. "I never meant to be part of your story," she said gently. "I only wanted to make a hard season easier." But somewhere along the way, this house felt like a place where grace lives. Ben reached into his pocket. In his hand was a small wooden box, carved by a local craftsman. Inside rested a simple ring with 2 words engraved inside: "Choose kindness." He opened the box and spoke with a steady voice. "Naomi, will you walk with me? Not as a visitor, not as a guest, but as the person I want to stand beside every day." Tears slipped down her cheeks, but her smile broke through. "Yes," she whispered. "I'll walk with you." Miriam clapped softly, laughing through her own tears. "About time," she said. They did not rush into a grand wedding. Instead, they began with a promise. Together they created the Miriam Rowe Care Fund, a small program to support families during recovery at home. Ben and Naomi wanted other houses to feel the same warmth that had saved theirs. Weeks later, under a bright summer sky, they held a modest ceremony in the community garden near the clinic. Neighbors brought flowers in glass jars. Music came from a single guitar. Vows were spoken simply, full of meaning. They promised not glamour, but loyalty. They promised not wealth, but presence. They promised to choose kindness each day. Miriam stood strong enough to join them, her smile wide as she watched her son and the woman who had restored their home. Applause rose from friends and neighbors, not loud, but lasting. It was the sound of support, of community, of truth being celebrated. When Ben and Naomi exchanged rings, they sealed not only their love, but their shared belief that a house becomes a home when it is built on compassion. Later, they cut a small cake, shared stories, and danced under the open sky. As the evening drew to a close, Ben looked at Naomi and at his mother. Peace settled inside him, deep and steady. This was not a life of perfect plans, but a life rooted in respect and care. He realized that real success was not the skyline of the city below, but the 2 hearts beside him. The rooftop garden had witnessed the promise. The vows were simple, but they carried the weight of forever. Ben and Naomi had found not just love, but a partnership built on truth. Miriam's eyes glowed with pride. The house had relearned sunlight, and now it carried the warmth of a new beginning. To everyone listening to this story, thank you for sharing this journey. It is a reminder that even in seasons of pain, kindness can rebuild, compassion can restore, and love can grow steady as light in a rooftop garden. And so, what began as heartbreak ended as hope. In choosing kindness over glamour, Ben found not just love, but a true home. Remember, real strength is measured not by wealth, but by compassion. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more inspiring stories.